everybody. All right, cool. So, this preparedness class, I'm going to talk about medicine and making your own. So, before we do, I'm going to pray real quick because we all need it, especially me. Father, thank you so much that you are the one who heals and guards and protects. Father, we look to you for our healing. May you teach us how to stay healthy and do the things you've called us to do, that we might be a set-apart people and ready and able to do your will. Indeed, I ask this in the name of Lord Yeshua. Amen. All right, so has anybody in here heard anything about China closing its shipping ports? A couple people, okay. How many people know that about 90% of pharmaceuticals come from China? Yeah, so you can imagine that fairly shortly there could possibly be a huge shortage of pharmaceutical drugs. Anything from ibuprofen to, life-saving stuff. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk about medicines that you can use at home. Now, for medicines, being as this is a preparedness class, with medicines I'm finding out even more, you really have to be ahead of the game with medicines, because nowadays you get a headache, you get some kind of sickness, whatever, you run to the doctor, you run to the drugstore, you run to Walmart and grab something off the shelf and go home and away you go. But with making your own medicines, most of the medicines are going to take anywhere from a month to 2 months for you to make. And it's not an intensive process, but it's a long waiting process. So, on the other hand, once you've made them, they will last a long time, depending on what you've made them with. Some can last a year or 2 years, and others can last 10 years or more, just because of how they're made and what it's made with, and how you prepare them. So, with that in mind, there are some different ways of making medicines or herbal remedies, if you will. So, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, never have been a doctor, or in the doctor's field of any kind of medicine. I'm just going to share with you things that I've learned, both things that I've done myself and things that I've read about and things that I've observed. So, some different ways of making these things are infusions. Basically, any tea that you make would be considered an infusion. You're using hot water to draw out properties from the leaves or plant material that you put in the water. Also, are cold infusions. So that would be, what's the word I'm looking for, like the cold pressed coffee that never sees heat. Some reasons for using a cold infusion instead of a hot is that if there are any elements in the plant material that you do not want to be in your infusion, sometimes putting something in hot water draws out too many tannins, which can be kind of bitter, and there's not really a need for them to be in there, so that you would use a cold infusion to do that, or things that may cause a bad flavor otherwise, or so when you use a cold infusion. Also a decoction, and that is a more concentrated form of infusion. So some reasons you would do that is if you're using more woody plants, or say you make a pine needle tea. The pine needles, because it's more hard and dense, they tend to release their properties a lot slower. So you need to do a more concentrated form. Or if you want to make the whatever you're using, you want to make it more potent, you would use a decoction. Basically, you're just putting your plant material in boiling water and then turning it down to a simmer and let it simmer until, I don't know, maybe a quarter to a half of the water has evaporated. And that constant low heat will draw out stuff. and as the water dissipates, it will make it more concentrated. And then, of course, you would strain out the plant material and just drink the water, reuse the water. Another way to use these remedies are in salves. Salves can be used as a drawing agent to draw out splinters or sometimes it will help draw out infections or things of that nature, depending on what you put in your salve. Or obviously they can be used to treat rashes or chapped hands or whatever the case may be. Another one, and my favorite, are tinctures and extracts. And I'll just pass over right now, get a little more into that later, because that's mainly what I use, are tinctures and extracts. So, another one is distillations. And distilling is most commonly used for making essential oils. And I've never really done a distillation to make my own essential oils, but that's another way to use them. And the last one is poultices. And poultice, if you need to make a poultice, a lot of times it's if you get a sprain, if you're trying to draw out an infection or something bad in your body that goes fairly deep, you'd use a poultice. If you would use poultice to draw out stings, or if you got a bruise or something like that, it would help with that. A poultice. And poultices are something a lot of times that are used out and about. You're out walking in the woods, hiking or something, and something happens and you need something right then to help alleviate the pain or the bump or whatever the case may be. You can make a poultice right there and slap it on you. And then oftentimes you would use a piece of cloth or even a large leaf to wrap around the poultice. And the main thing with the poultice is to keep it moist. So either that means remaking and reapplying a poultice every hour or a couple hours, or else kind of adding water every now and again to keep it moist and working, because poultice has to be moist in order to keep on working and functioning. So also, just if you guys are interested, I have a lot of books up here that I have found very helpful. And if you're interested, you can look at these to see if it's something you would like to purchase on your own. And so the main ones that I found to be very helpful are any books by Rachel Weaver, which you can find on Amazon. And then also The Lost Book of Herbal Remedies. And that one's a little bit more pricey, but it does have a lot more wild medicines in it, I guess, for lack of a better word. But which one? The Lost Book of Herbal Remedies by Nicole Palian and Claude Davis. And Nicole is actually a doctor herself, I think. And the reason I like her book and the Rachel Weaver books is that both of them talk from experience. It's not something that they've read about and researched and then they just decided to put a book together. But it's actually things that they themselves do on a regular basis, either for themselves or for others. And so they know what they're talking about, and they have good real-world experience with that. So that's why I like those, and I've learned a lot from those. So tinctures and extracts. Tinctures and extracts are when you use a solvent, for lack of a better word, to draw out the properties that you want to from the plant. And oftentimes it takes quite a bit of time, a month, 2 months, to get done. And then after you're done, you remove the plant material and then use portions, of the extract as you need it. So for instance, Two of the biggest solvents that you would use in an extract are an alcohol substance, but you have to use an alcohol that is consumable. Most of the time vodka is used, but it can be anything. It could be whiskey or I don't know what else is out there, or who knows, whatever. But it does. Only if you drink that stuff. But it does need to be consumable alcohol because most of the time you're going to take your tinctures internally. And so the positive side of using alcohol is that it absorbs very quickly into your body. And so any of the properties that you're trying to get will also be absorbed very quickly into your body. The other one that is most commonly used is vinegar. You can use basically any vinegar that you want to. A lot of people tend to use apple cider vinegar, but there's one lady that I've watched a couple of her videos on YouTube, which is Rain Country, and she makes her own vinegars from different things. It could be flowers or can't remember what else she uses a wide variety of things to make her own vinegars, and she teaches you how to do this. Well, then you can turn around and use those vinegars as a tincture agent to put other things in for your medicinal use. You can also, if you don't want to use an alcohol base, for example, if you have little kids, or if you were at any time in your life addicted to alcohol, you can also use glycerin as a base as well. It probably will take a little bit longer to extract the stuff with glycerin, but and it won't last quite as long. Alcohol, if you use that, will last a long, long time. 10 years or more. So if you make a big batch of something, you have a long time to be able to use it. With vinegars, you have at least a year, maybe 2 years of storage life. And this is not in a fridge. This is just in a cupboard or somewhere dark. You always want to store your, actually any medicinal or herbal plants you want to store in a dark place or in a dark jar, because sunlight will tend to dissipate the properties and leach out, do whatever it does. So just for your information. So for instance, I know that flu season's coming, and I think, yeah, I ought to do something. And then it gets to December, and somebody in my family gets sick. And then I look around, I'm like, oh, I don't have anything ready. And I realize that by the time I get something ready, it'll be January, February. And it's like, oh, rats, I missed again. So this is why I'm telling you now, if you want to be prepared, you need to start now making some stuff so that you have it when you're ready. Like I said, if it's alcohol-based, it will last a really long time. So, for instance, oh goodness, it's been at least a month ago. I got sick a little bit for about 2 days, 2 or 3 days. And it wasn't super bad, but the problem was that afterward, I had a nagging cough and everything kind of moved down to my chest. Well, I've had that cough for a month. So, if you have something, when you feel yourself starting to get sick and start taking it, then you're a lot better off. And that's the other thing that brings to mind is that, especially with these herbal remedies and things, they work a lot better for prevention, or if you start feeling yourself getting sick, to nip it in the bud, as Barney would say, and take care of it right away. If you wait until you're in the midst of being sick, it's going to take a lot longer to take care of. And I mean, it's not like pharmaceuticals now. You go take something and right away the symptoms are gone. You may still be sicker than a dog, but the symptoms are gone. So that's what I encourage you to do right now. So some tinctures and extracts that I've made and used are one that I call Flu Fighter that I've mainly made in apple cider vinegar, and you basically take about a cup each of these chopped things, and it's onions and garlic and ginger root and red pepper flakes, which is cayenne pepper, but it's in the flake form and not ground. And then you can also use horseradish, but that can be an extra, bit of an extra kick. But you put it, you chop them up and put them in a jar, and then fill the jar with apple cider vinegar, and obviously put a lid on it, and then set it aside for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. And every day, if you remember, you just go and shake it around a little bit, stir it up, and then at the end of those 4 to 6 weeks, you pour it and strain out all the stuff and keep the vinegar part, and that will have all your stuff. And then if you start feeling sick, you just take, or I just take about anywhere from a couple teaspoons to a tablespoonful of it in a small glass of juice, apple juice or something like that, and that helps the taste a little bit. If you do it straight or in water, it's going to be pretty nasty. But actually, one of my sons will ask for it, even if he's not sick. He just likes it in the juice because it does have a little bit of a kick with the cayenne pepper stuff in there. But it really works really good, and you really can't overdose on it. You just take it and take it and take it if you want. Take it every hour, or most of the time I'll do it maybe 3 times a day. I'll take that, and it helps out quite a bit. The other thing I want to kind of point out now while I'm thinking about it is that because all of our bodies are different, we're all going to respond a little differently to what we make. So while the apple cider vinegar Flu Fighter thing may work really good for me, it may not be so hot for you. I mean, it obviously won't hurt you, but it may not help you like it does me. So you might want to try something else that helps with flu or other sicknesses. So that's the other thing I like about these books is that they all list what these different things are good for. So, garlic and onions are some of the biggies for a lot of different things. I mean, everything from bumps and bruises to sore throats to flu to congestion, all kind of stuff. But you also have to know how to prepare them for that specific thing, which will help out as well. So another tincture that I made and have used a little bit recently because of my cough is a lichen tincture called Usnea, or I'm not sure how you would say that, Usnea, and it grows on branches, a lot of times dead twigs, and it's like a smaller version of the old man's beard, like in Florida, and so you get little smaller ones like this. But this one is best used in a double tincture, which means you put it in warm to hot water, not boiling, and let it cook for quite a while, like 8 or 10 hours. And then you take that water and everything, and then make an alcohol tincture with it, because the water will draw out some properties, and there's some properties that won't draw out, but that the alcohol will draw out, so you're getting all the properties of it. And then you use that pretty much straight. And that's also good for antiviral, antibacterial stuff. So, and then the one that I've just started using yesterday is a tincture from pokeweed. And I don't know how many are familiar with pokeweed, but the whole plant is kind of poisonous. So you have to, it has the purple berries that can really sting. But basically the whole plant is poisonous, so you really have to watch. So with this tincture, once you've got it made, you start, and you need to use it for whatever reason, you start off with 1 drop, a dropper full of 1 drop, and then the next day you take 2 drops, and then the next day you take 3 drops. And you keep upping the dosage until it makes you feel a little funny, for lack of a better word. And then you know, okay, I need to back off a drop. So, yeah, it's kind of wild. But you also don't use it for longer than 2 weeks in a row. But it is supposed to be very good, even against cancer and a lot of different things along with that. So, yes, some things you need to be aware of when using this. Most of the time, though, when you make an herbal remedy type thing, most of the time it can be really strong, but yet gentle on your body, which is kind of opposite from pharmaceuticals. And depending on what it is, you really can't overdose on it. Obviously, there are some things that you can, and you've got to be very careful with. So just kind of keep that in mind. Any questions, comments, concerns? Yes? Okay, the poisonous one was pokeweed, the same one that people make poke salad around here. Yeah. I did learn why they call it poke salad with a T and not poke salad, like salad you would eat. And the salad actually comes, I think it's like a French word or something. And it just means that you're boiling whatever it is before you eat it. And salad with a D is just raw and you just eat it. So, anyway, yes?
These were tinctures, you said?
Say what?
These were tinctures, your food fiber and...
Yes, those are all tinctures. And you can find all those tinctures in the Rachel Weaver books and the Lost Book of Herbal Remedies. Yes? Okay, so how do you use the poke salad? So you're gonna, mainly in the spring, you're gonna go out and find the poke weed, and you want to get it, most of the time you want to get it before it's a foot high, and you're gonna pick the leaves, and then put the leaves in boiling water, and let it boil for, I think at least 10 minutes, and then you dump the water out, and you get some more water boiling, and you put the leaves in there, and let it boil for at least 1 minute, and then you dump the water out again. And then you get some more water boiling, and then you put those leaves in that boiling water for another minute. And then you can dump out the water and use the leaves in whatever you're going to use them in. A lot of times people use the leaves in omelets or things of that nature. And the reason people have used the leaves in the past is because they're one of the first greens to come up in the spring. And back in the day, you survived the whole winter with hardly any greens at all, if any. And you're just looking for some kind of green nutrition to get you going. So I've never actually done it myself. I want to this spring. They say it is delicious, but it is a bit of work too. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, I did put some different wild medicine things in the magazine. And I need to write another article. Yeah, I do. Because of the length of the articles, at least for me in writing it, I think I've only put about 3 or 4 different plants in each article. So, but you do need, unless you have a book, you do need to kind of start out slow, and especially if you have to identify the plant first before you use it, to make sure you're getting the right plant that you're going to be. Yeah. You need to be really, really sure with wild medicines, because to just go out there and grab a plant, even if it's not going to kill you, it can be detrimental to your health and you still be okay. But if you're doing a tincture or toxin, or a tincture or extract, you're pulling all that out and concentrating it super much. And so if you take the wrong thing, it will do a lot more than mess you up for a little bit. Yes?
You mentioned at the beginning doing some things with hot and
Yes.
some things with cold.
The infusions?
As a massage therapists, we do the same thing. And the heat, we always used to draw out. And the cold, we use for stabilizing.
Okay.
And so the stabilization, which most people want heat, they don't realize they need the cold to stabilize what progress has already been done. And so they leave that part out and continually go to heat when you need to do things slowly. Heat, cold, rather than all heat or all cold. You need a combination because you need to slow things down. You need to stabilize yourself, stabilize muscle tissue or injuries, ligaments that are getting too hot can overdo themselves. And so, yeah, I like what you were saying about that, but you say, yeah, some things are cold, and I was like, yeah, that's because it's a stabilizing factor. You don't want to draw everything out, so you stabilize it. So you're still getting the benefit of a plant or an extract or an oil without pulling all the medicine out of it, but you need just that stabilization of having it without going too far.
So for those that didn't hear, who was talking about in, what'd you say, in massage therapy, that you use both hot and cold. The hot is to draw stuff out and to make it pliable, and the cold is to stabilize. And kind of the same thing with infusions, you know. If it's just a tea, then you can do all hot, but there are some things that you do want cold for because it helps stabilize and it draws out only what you want to draw out without the extra stuff. Yes?
You know, when making books,
Castor oil. Castor oil as a poultice or in a poultice? In a poultice. Yeah, there are some different.
Or you can cause it to go deep, like if you have like a bad respiratory infection, you make like a castor poultice. Whatever, you put cayenne pepper or whatever in the poultice. And make it and then make a cold compress.
Okay, so she's saying using oil, in this case castor oil, to help a poultice go deep and penetrate deep down. There are some poultices, like if you use activated charcoal as a poultice, that can go quite deep also. Or even some of the like bentonite clay things. I know one of them in there, I think, is to use an onion and chop it up and then mix it equal parts with salt and use that as a poultice on your chest to draw out congestion and things like that to help with that. One thing I found really cool with the onion is when I've had this cough, you take an onion and slice it all the way through, and then you place a slice, and then you cover that slice with sugar, and then another slice of onion, a slice of sugar, and so you basically recreate the onion mixed with sugar, if that makes sense. And then you cover it with like saran wrap or something and let it sit out all night. And then in the morning, you'll have about half a cup of syrup. And so I found it interesting. Right before I went to bed one night, I took a spoonful of the syrup. It doesn't really taste that nasty like you think. But I took a spoonful of syrup, and about a half hour later, I could tell that all my congestion had really loosened up quite a bit, and so you're able to expel it, for lack of a better word. And it really helps to break up that phlegm and that mucus stuff, which is really cool. Yeah, yeah. You can also do the same thing somewhat with garlic as well. Yes.
I put it where I couldn't breathe, you know, at night. One night it was like, you can't breathe that night when you go to sleep, you have like this kind of congestion. And I'll just chop up an onion with some garlic, whatever, and I put it in my socks.
Oh, okay, yes.
And I wear like a thick pair of socks, you put it, if you want, you put like a plastic bag over your foot and then
Yeah.
a sock. And you go to bed and like within 20 minutes, like my airways just totally opens up. Wow.
Yeah, so for those that didn't hear, she was talking about when she was really congested and had a hard time breathing at night because she was so congested. So she chopped up onions and garlic and put them in her sock, or her socks. And
Half a cup each place.
okay, about half a cup in each sock. And then in about 20 minutes, she was cleared up and could breathe. And I have heard that, I've just never had the gumption to try it.
It's kind of stinky, but it works.
Yeah, and that is the other thing. I did so last week I stayed home a day because I was just feeling like crud. I've been up the night before coughing every now and again that kept me awake. And so that day I had some garlic salve that I had made, and I rubbed the garlic salve on my feet and on my chest. And then about every 2 hours I ate a clove of garlic. Yeah, so I was one garlic up critter. But the next day I got up and went to work and I felt great. I mean, there was no congestion in my chest and I felt great, energized, and the whole 9 yards. But the problem was, it didn't stick. So I think, like I said, a lot of these things you have to do over and over again. So if I would have had another day or two that I could have done that, I think it would have kicked it. But with my work schedule, I can't really do it.
And what
Yes.
works good too is, I did have COVID.
The what?
I had COVID too.
Oh, okay.
But I'll help with it. Kind of a cough. They use fermented garlic cloves in honey.
Okay, yes, fermented garlic cloves
And
and
I
onions.
use those before I go to bed at night, and I didn't have a cough. Take care of the cough.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things. Also, I have made an elderberry syrup that helps good, just as far as immune boosting and coughs and colds and things like that. And you can take that quite a bit. And that is also good for little kids. And it's fairly tasty too. Speaking of COVID, if any are interested, you can go to cchfreedom.org and download what do they call it? It's a COVID little booklet thing. Anyway, I say that because the doctor that kind of put together this book, her mom got COVID, and so she took her to the hospital. The hospital said, "Your mom's not sick enough, come back when she is." And that was all they said. About ready? Okay. So she waited until she was sick enough, and she didn't know what to do in the meantime. She had no idea of anything that she could do to help her mom get better where she wouldn't have to go to the hospital. So, long story short, she ended up taking her to the hospital. They admitted her and put her in something ER, I don't know, some kind of something. Anyway, yeah, it's been a while since I've heard the story. But she was her mother's health advocate person for about 7 days, and then the hospital kicked her out. And so then after that, the hospital decided to put her on a ventilator, which there wasn't really a reason for. And then once she was on the ventilator, they basically denied her food and water, and basically ended up killing her. So this booklet, or this free downloadable thing, is to help you both to not get it in the first place, and if somebody does get it, to know what to do, to have things on hand to knock it out quick.
What was
And
that
by
called
some-
again?
Say what?
What was that called?
CCH Freedom,
Freedom, okay.
or I have it here somewhere. But also goes into things like how to have all your ducks in a row so the hospital can't kick you out, so that you can be there as a health advocate for your loved one, so that you can tell the hospital, no, you can't do that, or you have to do this kind of thing. But the problem is that a lot of hospitals have protocols in order to get that money that is detrimental to the patient itself. And so, let's see if I got this. If I can think of where to get it. But anyway, it's a good resource to have, just in case. Hopefully nobody ever needs it. Anyway, any other questions, comments? So, all right, with that, I will be done. I encourage you to, yes.
When will your book be coming out?
When will my book be coming out? Probably never. never. So, yeah, I'd encourage you guys to go start with something easy. Find some easy thing that you can do to set aside to help with colds or headaches. Or, for example, if you have constant headaches, migraines even, you can eat a couple leaves of the plant called feverfew every day, and that will help keep you from getting those headaches, and a bunch of other things too. So anyway.
Oh, I used to have
Yeah.
that sit in there.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What you did the same.
I will. Dosey do.
Appreciate what you're doing.
Welcome. I hope it helps.